Hi guys, I'm outside right now. Feels good to be outside. I just went to therapy and I kind of just like wanted to talk about something. Um, you know, the vessel is not determined, by the soul that you have. We shouldn't determine somebody off of the way we look or present. More like we shouldn't judge a book by its character. Growing up, I was always judged for the fact that I wanted to transition, and I knew I wanted to transition. And my mom always used to say, "Oh, it's just a phase." And I think saying that to a kid it's kind of like stripping them from knowing who they are at such a young age. Of saying like, "Oh, you don't know who you are." In fact, like that kind of like made it harder for me to know who I was by saying that. Oh, it's just a phase. Because as I got older, I was looking for it to just be a phase. Like, when is this gonna be over? And then as I got older, I realized like this is not something I'm joking about. This is not something I'm making up. This is something that I've been feeling for a while. And I guess a lot of parents want it to be a phase because, they don't want to see their kid, make poor decisions. So they try to make those decisions for them, not knowing that I am not you and you are not me. And growing up, I was just hoping that the phase would like, die down. Or if it was true, I was hoping that it would be true, that I, was just making this up in my mind. But as I got older, I realized that people were just determining me off of my vessel rather than my soul. And I think it's easier to determine somebody off of, their vessel, how they look, how they present, because nobody really knows one's soul like you know yourself. And it's just like judging a book by its character. Most people do that with me because I dress so differently. I look so differently than what people would perceive me to be once they get to know me. And I hate that because in this world, we're so media hungry. We're so seeking for, validation and this and that we miss, connections. We miss connecting with beautiful people because of who they are. I started a new job, and there's this guy that I work with. I'm not going to name no names, but there's this guy I work with, and I'm not saying I judged him, but we all judge people, regardless of if we say it or not. We try to inspect who they are and see if we're going to connect with them via how they look. But once I got to know him, I realized, like, he is not what I thought that he was going to be. And not because, like, I was putting him in a box, but just because of how he dresses and how he maneuvers. He's really an intelligent guy, and he's really kind and sweet and stuff. And we judge somebody off of the vessel versus who they actually are in the soul. And once I realized I was doing that, I had to really see the patterns of, how I grew up. And I realized people did that to me, and that's why, uh, not saying I think it's okay, but that's why I saw it, and I was like, oh no, I shouldn't do that. Because in reality, it's like we do not know somebody until we get to know somebody. And once we get to know somebody, we have to make a choice of whether they connect with us or not. And some people don't want to connect to people, not because they don't want to connect, because they're jealous of them. Because they saw something in their soul that they do not embody. And they get scared of that. And I realized, like, I'm stopping myself from connecting with people, maybe because I'm scared of the reflection I see. And in that moment of meeting him, I realized he's a lot more open and a lot more carefree. And I'm very introverted, but I'm carefree and free spirited or whatever not. And I'm just making this as an example. But I realized that I'm a little closed off now because of how many people have rejected me and how many people have judged me because of my vessel. And I can keep repeating those patterns, or I can change that pattern. And I changed the pattern, and I really got to know him, and he's a really cool guy. And it's like, it's crazy because a lot of people, you know, restrict themselves and reject themselves from connecting with people off of what they see on the outside versus what they actually feel on the inside. And I want you to know that don't change for anybody. I think growing up, I made a good decision by not changing for anybody. Yes, I lost a lot of crucial, people that were supposed to be in my life, but everything happens for a reason. If they were going to be in my life, they would have been in my life. But the fact that I made a decision that they didn't want me to make, or I stepped outside those guidelines they couldn't accept. And, we always have, an opinion on everything in this world. An opinion is an opinion. It's not factual information. And I had to realize that just because they feel that way doesn't mean I have to feel that way. It doesn't mean you have to feel that way. And growing up, people really wanted me to believe that's how life went. And I, stepped outside of the box and I did what I felt like I wanted to do. And I am who I am. And whoever likes me, and whoever doesn't. But I'm not going to change my form or, who I am for anybody but myself. And it takes a really good portion of your life to actually believe in yourself. Because a lot of people, especially when you're growing up, they try to mold you into who they want you to be and how they see fit for you and all this stuff. In reality, they don't even know who they are. So why would you change for somebody when they don't even know who they are? And I had to realize that, and I had to go back and realize, like, I am good enough the way I am. And regardless if I feel like I want to, transition because I don't feel like I'm comfortable in the body I am, that has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with me. And I have to hold that, and I have to see that within myself and see if that's a good decision for myself. But I shouldn't go or change my life based off of your opinion, And so what I'm trying to say is just be comfortable with who you are, Don't regret anything. And I'm not saying that you're not going to have regrets, but I'm saying don't have regrets based off of other people's opinions. Like, if you want to do something, go do it. See if it's meant for you. This is, we're in the world, and, the earth and the world is just school for us. We are, spiritual beings living in a human experience. We are learning every single day. We are in school. Earth is our school, to learn and make mistakes and figure it out and rewrite and, make a legacy and be comfortable with who you are. It's here that we get a choice, and the choice is not anybody else's choice but your own. Don't let, somebody rewrite your script for you, and I feel like a lot of people have experienced that in life where people try to rewrite their script. And I first say that rewrite your own script. If you don't like something in your life, rewrite that shit, go figure out where, there's missing pieces or there's something that isn't right, and go change that, because you have the ability to change that. But don't change it just because people want you to, and I feel like our voice is, being stripped away from us, and in every sense of the way, our rights are being taken away from us, our opinions are being taken away from us. And we're in a human experience to live life the way we feel fit, not the life that people want us to live, And so it's really hard for, my generation and the generation to come, because we're so bound by, oh, I have to do this way, and I have to. No, you don't. Just live the way you want to, and things will come towards you, and you'll make another decision whether that's what you want to do or that's not what you want to do. And it's that simple, but we make it so complicated because of how we grew up and what is right and what is wrong and there's no right or wrong, because everybody's right or wrong looks differently, And you really have to see it and learn and see the perspective at hand. Because just because I perceive life this way, somebody might perceive life a whole different way, and it's not right or wrong. That's just how they perceive it. So, yeah, don't let people, sway you, and don't judge people off of the vessel, because the vessel is just a meat suit, bro. It's not actually the person you're seeing. The meat suit is just to keep us bound to this earth so we can actually live out the human experience. But it's not everything. You really, in order to get to know somebody, you really have to dig deep, because we are complex beings. mentally, physically, and emotionally. And we shouldn't judge somebody off of the way they look. We should judge them off of how they treat themselves and others. And even then, we need to give a little grace because we're not perfect. I feel like we always forget that we're not perfect because we feel like what we're doing in life is right. But like I said, there's no wrong or right. We're all going to make mistakes at one hand. And we shouldn't jab somebody in the throat or the eye just because they are not up to par with our standard, because that's not our life. That's their life. And if you don't like the way somebody's treating you, just simply back away. But don't chastise somebody because they made a mistake, because you are bound to making those same mistakes. So yeah.